Welcome to our 17th show in a continuing series of what it means to be a Mason. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today the most worshipful Grandmaster of Masons in Massachusetts, Arthur E. Johnson. Welcome to our show, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Fran. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and I thank you, and I thank Continental Cable Television and the Whitman Studios for the opportunity of joining with you.
Thank you. When I say the Grand Lodge, Grandmaster of Masons in Massachusetts, actually it's a little bit larger than that, isn't it?
Yes, we do. We have facilities, other lodges in the Panama Canal area, in China, in Japan, and this dates back largely to when the military was active and meeting in those areas. But we still have lodges in existence there.
So it's pretty much an international organization then?
For Massachusetts, yes, and of course there are other Grand Lodges all over the world.
There are 51 Grand Lodges in the United States, one for each state, plus one in the District of Washington, correct?
Columbia has their own, that is correct. We also have a Grand Lodge in Alaska, Hawaii has one, Puerto Rico has one, so the Grand Lodges are well represented.
Very good. So what is Freemasonry? How did it start, and can you enlighten us on some of that?
I can certainly give it an effort. Freemasonry goes back in Massachusetts to 1623. It was organized here. We were formed by the Grand Lodge of England, and it was at a time that the Revolution was on, the Continental armies were in existence, and it was a way for men to meet together and enjoy their sociable activities. Prior to that, it was a stonemason who worked in the actual building of the pyramids. As that wound down and the work wasn't there, it became a social group, and we became what we call operative masons, and it's prospered for many, many years. The way that the fraternity works is you have to be a recognized Grand Lodge. England was, of course, the original. The second one was Ireland, and Massachusetts was the third. From there, as areas of the world developed, these Grand Lodges would form additional Grand Lodges as their members traveled.
Very good. So it is really an old organization. I know a lot of the passages in Masonry, the ritual is taken right from the Bible.
That is correct, yeah.
And it relates to the building of King Solomon's temple.
Much of our ritual does. We're obviously not a religion. We have a belief in a supreme being, and to become a Mason, you have to have this belief. But your supreme being can be Jehovah, it can be God, it can be what you believe. But that way, we're not a religion. We just encourage our members to practice their religion.
And it has to be of your own free will and accord. You can't be coerced or pressured into joining.
That is correct. Yeah. And in Massachusetts, where we go back so far, it's just been amazing to see how well it puts together, stays together. Not only is there Freemasonry, but many people don't realize that there are pendant bodies of Masonry, bodies that you have to be a Mason to belong to. As you know, like the Shrine, we have something called the Scottish Rite, which is a group that have 32 degrees, and we call them Scottish Rite Masons. We have the York Rite for those that profess a belief in Christ and would like to belong to that. And then groups like the Shrine, the Grotto. And what it does is it gives you the opportunity to practice knowing your friends and being sociable in the way that you best enjoy it.
Well, sounds like a lot of fun. Some of the other Masonic bodies, I know there's a National Camping Travelers Association that is for campers, and they have a nice group.
Yes, and within our own state here, there are many groups like the police have a degree team, the firefighters, many corporations and all, who get together as individuals to form the entire Grand Lodge. And again, what it does is it allows you to have a close friendship with the people that you're with every day and still be part of the fraternity itself. So the sharing is what makes it all work.
Now, Masons, who is a Mason? Any particular person, religion? I mean, not religion, but any occupation?
No, it's available to everyone. You have to be 21 years of age. You have to be a male. And from there, you just have to be of good report. You have to be an upstanding man. And then just request joining a lodge in your community maybe, or maybe one where you work. And that brings you in as a Mason. To stay active, you just have to be a reputable man and enjoy yourself.
Good, good. There's been a lot of famous people who've been Masons in times past and current too. George Washington was most notable, and the Grand Lodge has a museum that we hope to do a show on soon, and they have a lock of George Washington's hair in an urn that Paul Revere put together. Paul Revere was one of our famous Masons.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. The lock of hair was donated by George Washington's wife, and Paul Revere was the Grandmaster of Masons 200 years ago, and he made a little urn to contain the lock of George Washington's hair in. But when you go back in our history, in Massachusetts especially, where we are the oldest Grand Lodge, much of the development of Massachusetts was in Blue Lodge Masonry. If you go to the records of the Lodge of St. Andrew, you'll see where the night of the Tea Party, they had a meeting and adjourned early. And I'm not 100% certain why they adjourned, but they did have more important business that evening.
I think there were the records of one of the lodges said adjourned for a tea party, but it was never proven.
Paul Revere was the master, so it's possible.
That was an interesting book. Speaking of books, Grand Lodge Library is open to the public, and they have all kinds of books so that anybody who's interested can go to the library, almost any library in the country, and pick up a book on masonry and learn all they want to know about it. We are not a secret society.
You talk about being a secret society. We have signs of recognition that are secret. We say secret, but again, if you go to the Boston Public Library or our own library, it's all pretty well detailed there. But as far as it being a secret society, we list the names of our members. On any building we meet in, you see the square and compasses, which is our symbol, prominently displayed, and we have a great pride in it. So the only secrets are signs of recognition. And I'll be truthful, anyone that joins Masonry to learn the secrets gets cheated. Where he gets his reward is the people he gets to know and the men he gets to share with and the charitable works that they get to perform. So the secrets are really nothing that makes us a secret society, just a form of recognition through a handshake or a sign like that.
The friendships that I have made over my years in Masonry are tremendous. I went down to Athens, Georgia, several years ago for a Navy supply school, and I found a lodge down there, and I made myself known. I said, well, why don't you come to a lodge meeting? So I went to a lodge meeting with them the next week rather, and I was instantly among friends, welcomed as a brother among Masons.
Yeah, I think that's the truth, and I think that's what makes being a Mason so enjoyable. And we have so many that are just so active at it. If you look at our charitable works also, our Grand Lodge has a home in Chowton, and I'd certainly recommend that anybody has the opportunity to get up to Chowton on Masonic Road to take a look at the Grand Lodge home. It's a delightful place, and I think that the charities of Masonry are fantastic. I just came back a couple of weeks ago from a Grandmasters conference where all the Grandmasters in the United States and from most of the other parts of the world get together, and currently Masons are contributing in excess of $2 million a day in charitable efforts. And Massachusetts is so proud to be in that number. And when you look at it, things like the Shrine Burns Hospital and Posturepedic hospitals are certainly in that group, but all the bodies, including Massachusetts, has participation in the charities. And if that's the type of work you enjoy doing it, we have it.
That's fantastic. The Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts has a website for anybody that's interested, and I believe it's glmasons.com.
That is correct.
And you can find out anything you want to know right on their homepage, and you can talk with anybody at Grand Lodge through the email address.
And if you're not on the internet yourself, a call to the Grand Lodge would certainly put you in touch with any information you'd like to obtain from Freemasonry.
I think we had the number on screen once, but if it isn't there now, it's 1-800-882-1020. And they'll be able to answer any questions you have about Masonry.
That's certainly a challenge for them, but I'm sure they'll meet that challenge. That's good, yeah. I think one of the good things about our organization is that I represent the Grand Lodge, which is the senior body in the state, but the individual lodges are in most communities in Massachusetts. And anyone who is looking to be active, there's most anything you can do. If you want to be an officer and do more work than any man should be asked to do, then you can do that. If, on the other hand, you like sitting back and enjoying what's happening, then that's what you should do. If you enjoy cooking, and a lot of us enjoy eating, but if you enjoy cooking or something like that, there's room for that. And if you enjoy something that maybe is not being done now, we'd enjoy seeing if it's something that fits in with our way. So there's something for everyone in the fraternity.
I went through the offices of Pawtucket Lodge and became the master, and it was a challenge, but it was a rewarding challenge. Right now I'm the secretary, and that kind of keeps me busy too.
It does. Yeah, the secretaries certainly play a vital role. They keep track of all our records, and many of them go back the 260, 70, 80 years into our history and are still in good shape today. And you mentioned earlier the library. Our library has not only a history of Freemasonry in Massachusetts and the world, but it has a pretty good history of our Commonwealth of Massachusetts and where that's been since we're so closely interlaced. And there's a lot of research that's done there on people who are putting together a history because of its accuracy. And I'd recommend to anybody who would like to come on in, take a look at the library, and see if it has information that you'd like.
Now, the library is located in Boston on the corner of Washington and Tremont.
That is correct.
186 Tremont Street. And like the Grandmaster says, anybody's welcome to come in and take a tour of the building.
They'd be certainly appreciated and be good to see them when they get there. We'd enjoy taking people through. I think when you're proud of something, you get a thrill out of taking people who would like to look at it through, and we'd certainly like to do that.
Right. Well, as Grand Master of Masons in Massachusetts, maybe you could tell our audience what it took to get you there, when you joined, and the kind of work that you had to do to get to this position.
Sure. I grew up in the south end of Boston, and when we first got married, we moved out to Quincy. And I was 30 years old and decided I'd like to be a Mason. One of my prime motivations is I wanted to play in the Shrine Band. And they did have and still have one of the best bands that you'll find around. And so I went to my minister of my church, and he took me over to Macedonian Lodge in Milton. And in 1965, I joined Macedonian Lodge. And the way it generally works is you show a little bit of interest, and someone gives you a job. And that's what happened. I started working in the kitchen, and next thing they invited me to be one of their officers. We call the head of our lodge a master, which would be the same as a president. And so I went in line, and 6 years later I was the master of the lodge and very much enjoyed it. It was a group of people and the type of thing I enjoyed. I was with the Shaman Corporation. I was the director of data processing, and this was a nice relief and a change of pace. And so, as I say, in 1971 I was the master of Macedonian Lodge and stayed active in Grand Lodge, played in the Shrine Band. We were just having a great time at it.
How did you get chosen for Grand Lodge, though? I mean, you got as high as the master of your lodge, but then how did you get beyond that point?
Each community has a grouping of lodges. For example, down here it's the 29th Masonic District, and they have a district deputy Grand Master who serves 2 years. And the Grand Master selects someone out of that district to take that 2-year rotation. And so for my first opportunity I was the district deputy Grand Master in the Quincy 26th Masonic District, and found that to be maybe even more fun than having been master of Macedonian Lodge. From there, I was invited to be a candidate for senior Grand Warden, and the second year I was elected. The first year, a gentleman by the name of Wally Brown was elected senior warden, did an outstanding job. In our jurisdiction, you serve in that job 1 year. At the end of the year as a Grand Warden or as a Deputy Grand Master, you finish up your term and you become a permanent member of Grand Lodge. Every 3 years, we elect a Grand Master, and I was fortunate enough last year to have been elected Grand Master for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're the only jurisdiction I'm aware of that gets to serve 3 years in that office. So it started by being Master of Macedonian Lodge, a District Deputy Grand Master in my local district, and then Grand Lodge Officer and Grand Master.
Now, could you explain what your responsibilities are to the constituent lodges and what their responsibilities are to you?
Yes, that's a broad one. As Grand Master, they start you 6 months in advance and get you looking at some of the things, but you also serve as the president of the Masonic Home, the chairman of the Masonic Education and Charity Trust, and as the Grand Master. As Grand Master, you're getting to look to select the officers that are going to serve in the local jurisdictions and our Grand Lodge. And I'd say it's probably the key responsibility. You pick the people to serve in the education department to make certain that we're doing the proper training and getting ready for it. You look at the direction of our home, and with Medicare and everything changing so rapidly, to see the proper direction to be going in that area. We have a good feedback to our district deputies, who are, again, the people who are responsible for their local area. We have an education department that handles any needs they have, And we also have a service department. For example, the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts is the largest single contributor of blood in the United States. We contribute in excess of 20,000 pints a year to the Red Cross. And that's done on a local basis through our District Deputy Grand Masters program. So there's just a great deal of interfacing going on.
You mentioned the blood drive. The Tri-Town building has 4 blood drives a year. The next one is coming up in March, and then there's one in June, one in September, and one in December. And I urge everyone who is eligible to please come and give blood. We give a complimentary breakfast or lunch, whichever the case may be. And we do give a lot of blood. You mentioned earlier the Masonic Home. In June, what is it, the 14th, I think they have the Grandmasters Fair, where people can have a tour of the home, and there's the clowns and the shrine band and the whole 9 yards. There's a steam engine railroad up there. What is the size of it?
They've just expanded it. I'm not sure what the full length of the track is, but it's about a 4-minute run around the grounds. And they've got a group of men that have expanded the hobby train that you had in your cell one further with a ride on train in Charlton. Before we leave the blood program, I would go down back to Tri-Town Lodge.
Okay.
As we look at the success of our program, Tri-Town is certainly one of the best conducted, and you should be real proud of the way it goes together here. It's something that we in Massachusetts take great pride in the way you put it together. But the fair that we have in Charlton, last year we had in excess of 20,000 people come up and join with us at the fair. One of the big things that we always joke about is we have grand chaplains and Grand Lodge, and we tell them that their prime job each year is to pray for no rain at the Grandmasters Fair in June. And they've been very effective. They do an outstanding job at it. But each of the districts put on a booth, and the booth oftentimes is food, as you can tell by looking at some of us. They'll put on a dunking tank, one of the districts does. They have events for the children, and that's growing greatly as more children come out. They have a peanut drop from bi-wing planes that drop peanuts each year. Depending on how clear the weather is, they have a parachutist that comes on into the grounds. But it's a fantastic event. Its prime motivation is to let the people get to know the residents a little better and to see how well the folks who are at the home are treated, and to make the folks there feel just a little better. And a pass is given to each resident for anything they want to do at the fair that day. And I certainly recommend on the second Saturday in June each month, anybody that can come up to the home in Charlton. It's at exit 10 on the Mass Pike would be most welcome to join with us. Check with their own Blue Lodge in their area first to see if they might even have transportation for them.
That's very good. I know I took my wife up there last year, not at the Grand Masters Fair time, but we went through a tour at the home. We were camping up in Charlton, and we went through a tour of the home, and it's beautiful up there. And I can remember my brother-in-law, he went up there once, and he was saying that one of the help was setting the table for lunch, and she'd pick up each glass and look at it, you know, and to see that there was no spots on it. And each piece of silverware, that it was spotless before it was put on the table. They do a fantastic job at the Masonic Home.
The attitude of the staff is certainly outstanding. This all took place at the turn of the century. There was a hotel that was a summer resort for the folks in New York State and parts of Connecticut would come down to the Overlook and enjoy a week or two. And as it got a little older and there was no longer the necessity for it, the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts bought it. And the original move was just to move all the patients into the Overlook Hotel and use that for nursing facilities. And over the years, the Overlook is, matter of fact, in kind of disrepair right now, and we've just signed a contract to redo the Overlook building and have that as a landmark, and we're interested in preserving the beauty and making it a functional place for a dining area for those of us that visit it. The residents will still have their main dining facility in the home itself. But come look at that. It's worth looking at, too.
The view from the Masonic Home is fantastic. It's up on the hill, and you can see a beautiful view almost all the way around. And I understand that the Grand Lodge has recently purchased a condominium up there that went into bankruptcy?
What we're doing is we're looking at the thought of having independent living. Today it appears that people are able to take care of themselves for maybe even longer than they once could. So we're looking now to find a place where someone who's finished their responsibilities to families and all, but still want the independence of their own car, to feel that they're going to bed when they want and getting up when they want and all that, that want a place to live that's reasonably priced and yet close enough to the home that they could have meals there or something like that if they wished. And we've just bought 7 units there, and this is kind of an experiment to see how it goes. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be announcing that it's available, and any of the families that require that type of living, it would be good. And again, they'll be totally independent. It's the same as if they were renting an apartment, except it's a nice condominium that's in a friendly atmosphere, and they have the services of a home if they need them.
Now, the home is open to Massachusetts Masons, their wives and widows.
That is correct, and there's really a I can't even say it, but it's a circle that broadens out that says that if you're a Massachusetts Mason, you would have first claim. If you're a Massachusetts Mason's family, you would have second claim. And then we're expanding that so that we're able to see that we get service to any of the segment of the community that requires nursing care.
Well, it sounds like quite a program.
We're looking forward to it, and I don't think it's over yet. The laws, the way people are handled when they need housing is changing greatly now for both nursing care and for home care. And so as these laws change and the hospitals play a greater role and the HMOs expand into the Medicare area, we want to be certain that the Masonic home is a viable place and that we're able to take care of people there and other places if necessary.
A couple of minutes ago, we spoke about the 51 Grand Lodges. Is there any connection between the lodges, or are they all independent?
There's certainly a connection as far as fraternalism goes, and that we have total visitation rights with each other. But as far as the structures go in Freemasonry, each Grand Lodge is supreme unto itself. There is no head Grand Lodge in the United States or anything like that. Masonic tradition tells us when George Washington was finishing up as president, they offered that he become the Grand Master of all lodges in the United States. And at the time, he felt it was wiser to leave it the way it was. There's been an evolution that got us there. Transportation wasn't good when Freemasonry was formed, and the way things worked is people pretty much migrated for work reasons. And so when you and I left Massachusetts and maybe went west or something like that, we ended up forming a lodge out there, which was independent, and it would have been unruly. It couldn't have been guided or controlled by the Grand Lodge it came from. It had to be its own self. And I think probably the last person that could have put it all back together as one united body was George Washington. It has pluses and minuses to it. I think the pluses are that each of us in our own region are capable of doing what we feel will best serve the fraternity. We have the ancient landmarks who tell you what you have to do to be a member, what our purposes are. We all have to agree to that. But beyond there, each of us can have our own programs and do our own things. Massachusetts, that's working well. If you look what happened to Freemasonry after the Grand Lodge structure, it was found that people needed more than just the formal structure of the Grand Lodge. Someone wanted to play in a band like I did, or maybe you wanted to march in a patrol unit, ride a motorcycle, do ritual in Scottish Rite. And so these bodies were formed much later in the revolution of Freemasonry. And so you find that the shrine has one common head, an imperial potentate, and all shrine temples in the entire world come under their domain. As the Scottish Rite, they have a northern jurisdiction, but again, they have their entire world, and they are in charge of it all. Where we in Massachusetts are supreme unto ourselves, the collateral bodies, the other groups that belong in our fraternity, get the ability to have a central focal point. And financially, that can be extremely good. There's just no way that you could have the Shrine of Massachusetts with the hospital system they have. So I think when you put them together, the evolution has worked well for us.
A few moments ago, you mentioned in ancient times that transportation wasn't good. Sometimes you hear the phrase a moon lodge. Now, people might wonder what a moon lodge is. Well, a moon lodge was a lodge, say, of farmers that might have had to travel a distance. And they traveled at the full of the moon.
That's right.
So that's when they had their meetings.
We still have 4 of them that I'm aware of in Massachusetts who still meet according to the cycle of the full moon. And Again, as you suggest, the reason was that was the lighting to get you there and get you home. Yeah.
Fellowship Lodge down in Bridgewater was chartered in 1797. The charter was signed by Paul Revere, and I believe that is one of the moon lodges. I think they still meet on the full of the moon.
They do. Yep. And again, the traditions are that way. We also have lodges that are associated with universities. Harvard Lodge has a lodge that's been meeting for many years, and you have to have an affiliation with Harvard University to belong. So you do get special purpose lodges also that tie into things like the Moon Lodge that work for us.
You also hear the phrase Daylight Lodge. There's a lodge down in the Cape, I think it's a Daylight Lodge, that they meet during the day rather than at night when most lodges meet.
Euclid Lodge was a lodge that was, Norm Crosby, as a matter of fact, served as master of the lodge many years back, and its purpose was to give actors and performers an opportunity to have a Masonic lodge, recognizing that they couldn't meet at night because that's when they worked. And at one time, a large number of people from the symphony orchestra were in there and all sorts of performers. And Norm Crosby was in Boston last June and paid a visit back to his original lodge at Euclid Lodge.
You mentioned performers. John Wayne was a Mason, Red Skelton, Ernest Borgnine. There are many of them that were Masons.
A great story about Red Skelton. He was given the Southern Jurisdiction's highest Scottish Rite Award, I guess about 2 years ago. And Bob Ralston went and made the presentation of it as the Sergeant Grand Commander in California. And it was about 3 months later, a friend of mine was going through California and met Red Skelton at an airport. And when he congratulated him for having the award, he was still wearing it 3 months later. And Red Skelton is just so committed and devoted to Freemasonry and to all the appendant bodies of it. You're right.
It is something to be proud of, the association with Freemasonry. It's been very interesting talking to you, Most Worshipful, and I would like to thank you for being on our show.
Well, I certainly thank you. Your love for the fraternity and dedication certainly comes through. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you for being here. Now we will watch some of the highlights from some of our previous shows.